How I wish that our next guest was in Foggy Bottom, was the Secretary of State for the United States rather than little Marco Rubio, who's merely a puppet for the Adelsons, said Donald Trump before he appointed Marco Rubio. If Chris Hedges was the Secretary of State, America would be playing a civilized role in the world, and it would definitely be more cogent than it currently is. But he's not there, he's here. As always, an honoured guest on the mother of all talk shows. Chris, wonderful to see you again. I don't know where to start. Which war is going to kick off first? The invasion of Nigeria or the invasion of Venezuela? Is Trump biting off more than he can chew?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of flailing around. He as usual, he's very unfocused, very impulsive. The consequences of what he does are beyond him or the sycophants around him to determine. Look, he's blowing these boats out of the water. This supposed ceasefire, 236 Palestinians have been killed since the quote-unquote ceasefire went into effect. Israel carried out strikes today. Yeah, I mean, he's perfectly capable of it, but he's not capable of handling the consequences of it.
I think that's right, which makes me wonder if he fully calibrates the consequences. I mean, I don't know what caused this spasm over Nigeria, whether it's evangelically driven or not, but the idea that your country, in all of its circumstances, with its indebtedness and its military overstretch, could actually invade a country of 250 million people, that suggests to me that Trump doesn't fully understand Nigeria and Africa.
No, neither does Hegseth, neither does Rubio, neither does Stephen Miller. I mean, these people are buffoonish, they're killer buffoons, but they don't grasp at all what they're doing on the world stage. So, and I think the ceasefire, the quote-unquote ceasefire, is evidence of that. Trump essentially got Israel to slow walk it, but it hasn't stopped. The aid isn't getting in, and I think that they'll slow walk it until they can find some excuse to ramp it up again. No, it's extremely dangerous. I mean, now the guy says he wants to start testing nuclear weapons again.
Yeah, I mean, not only are they not going to return to the START talks table, they're stopped. The only start there's going to be is to underground nuclear weapons testing. Once upon a time, this would have caused a political earthquake, but it seems to have passed almost unnoticed in your country and mine.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the United States has become completely unhinged. Congress, which is just essentially become an obsequious chamber, I mean, it's Republican dominated, of course, that cheers on every constitutional violation that Trump carries out, and every kind of overreach that the Trump White House is consolidating. Although, let's be clear, the Democrats started this process of the Imperial presidency, and the Democratic Party is just supine. I live in the state of New Jersey. It's running a Kamala Harris look-alike, issueless, vapid, celebrity-driven campaign, and this is a very dangerous tactic. The problem is that the Democratic Party, there's only one way to stop Trump, and that is to build popular movements or re-empower the popular movements that were attacked and disempowered starting in the 1970s. And of course, the Democratic Party was a full partner with that. But the reason that they won't, I mean, there was a long article the other day in the New York Times, I think it was the 12 indications that America is becoming an authoritarian state, all of which was correct. But the problem was that the New York Times, like all of these liberal institutions, will not embrace the only tactic that can bring Trump down, and that is mass mobilization, because it would bring a discredited or a bankrupt liberal elite down with Trump. And they would rather remain in their privileged positions of status than empower a movement that will remove them as well. And that, in essence, just makes them full partners in our emerging police state.
It is an emerging police state. I've been looking a little more closely at it. I was taking the view these are internal, domestic American affairs, not my business. But I've started to look at the situation on the ground in the United States, and I'm thinking, for example, I don't know how the World Cup can possibly go to the United States next year, given the disorder on the streets, the militarization of policing on the streets, and the naked racism that is on parade every day from the government of the United States. I don't know how you get to run the World Cup in those circumstances.
Right. Well, he's going to reduce legal immigrants to 7,500 a year, and he's going to draw them from the white population of South Africa. It is so nakedly white supremacist. He has removed a series of people who had senior positions, especially in the military, who are either women or of color. It's and then, of course, we're all supposed to kneel and genuflect before Charlie Kirk. In fact, you're punished. You can't even get in the country if you've tweeted something out that criticizes Kirk's open racism, homophobia, Islamophobia, misogyny. No, we're in big trouble. But what, of course, is so frightening is that there are no institutions, and including the Democratic Party, that are pushing back. They are just capitulating right and left. We now have one of the major networks turned over to not only an arch Zionist, Bari Weiss and Larry Ellison, or I guess his son David is technically running it, but they're about to buy up TikTok and probably CNN. And what's going to happen? Well, we know what's going to happen. That will suppress the content that has exposed Israel for the genocidal state that it is and for the crimes that it has committed in Gaza. But they know nobody's buying, the Israel Hasbara or propaganda anymore. And so they will use those platforms to demonize and slander Muslims. So it'll be a policy of fear. And on every aspect, this country is kind of withering away, calcifying. The creation of these goons, ICE, and building of, and let's call them what they are, concentration camps. You look at what happened in Chicago, where they descended from helicopters and terrorized. I mean, firing stun grenades and everything else in this apartment building. There's no difference between that and a night raid in Fallujah. And it's Thucydides' great adage about the death of Athenian democracy, that the tyranny Athens imposed on others had finally imposed on itself. And that's precisely what's happening here.
There once was, you were a part of it. You're a Pulitzer Prize winner. You're the Middle East bureau chief for the New York Times. There once were bastions of, let's call them liberal democracy in the American media. We now have a media which is dominated by Elon Musk, who's the top dog, and Rupert Murdoch, who's probably the second, and the Ellisons. They're going to own virtually all of the historic architecture of the American media, with the liberals of the New York Times flailing ineffectually against the dying of the light.
Yeah, and let's be clear, Trump is suing the New York Times. I think it's for $115 million. So yeah, they're flailing in the sense that they recognize the problem, but they refuse to embrace the only remedy that we have because they're culpable. They're culpable in creating Trump. NAFTA was pushed through by Clinton, Democratic president, and ended up with 30 million mass layoffs courtesy of deindustrialization. This is what created Trump. And the liberal class neutered itself by descending into woke politics and virtue signaling, kind of looking down on those Hillary Clinton called deplorables and forgetting that this was a class war, one that we were losing, and they took the wrong side. They took the side of the corporatists and the billionaire class to remain ensconced in their positions of power. And so they are rightly hated by large segments, especially the working class of the country, for that betrayal. And their only response at this point, it's absolutely visionless. Their only response is to say, we're not Trump. And that isn't going to work. It's a losing formula. And then you have all the gerrymandering, because Trump and the Republican Party, gerrymandering is when you redistrict to make sure that Republicans retain control and Democrats. There's a slew of states where this has been carried out to essentially prevent the Democratic Party even from contesting this election and seeing the Republicans, which have completely surrendered, of course, to Trump. They don't even function as a legislative body to ensure a continuation of this assault. And then we have Trump running around talking about a third term. And I can assure you, as Steve Bannon pointed out, he's not joking.
No, he's not joking. And we're running a poll on it this very evening. And most people think he is going to try and do it. Of course, all men are mortal, and he's not a young man. He might not be able to do it. We'll have to wait and see on that. But for all you say, the Republican Congress is, of course, completely, with one or two exceptions, and both of them in Kentucky, there is hegemony for Trump on the right. But in the MAGA base, there are quite significant movements on issues like Palestine, like Israel, and its continued domination of American policy making at all levels. Who would have thought that Candace Owens, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, and others of that ilk, right-wing conservative people, would have so transformed their views on the issue that they are bigger enemies now of the settler state than you and I are.
I wouldn't go that far, George. But we're pretty implacable.
Well, Mark Levin is not identifying you and me. He's identifying them.
Yeah. Well, because that's their traditional base. There's always been some dissent, certainly within the base of the Democratic Party. 75% of registered Democrats during the last presidential campaign called for the cessation of arms shipments to Israel. So they're watching among their traditional base, because Netanyahu has long pivoted towards the Republican Party and the Christian evangelicals, even that erode. And that gets back to the point that I made earlier with the seizure of these social media platforms. What we will see is not an attempt to sell Israel. Israel's ability to sell itself is finished. It will just be a vicious Islamophobic slandering of Muslims to essentially build a kind of a system of fear among the population towards Muslims rather than support for Israel. But yeah, it's fascinating. And of course, we saw with Charlie Kirk that even he had to take steps away from the Israel lobby, which provided the Zionist donors provided millions of dollars to him. I think he had an $80 million a year budget. But his base, I mean, if you look at the under 30 base in the Republican Party, support for Israel has dwindled to almost nothing.
Now, finally, Chris, and I'm always grateful for your time, is he really going to invade Venezuela? Does he know what might happen if he does?
I don't think he knows. I don't think anyone knows. I think he's so mercurial. He's so impulsive. He changes his opinion right and left. It's impossible to predict. However, it's also extremely possible that he just wakes up tomorrow and decides to do it. But I don't think he knows. I don't think anyone around him knows. Of course, it would be a debacle. We're going to go to war with Nigeria. I mean, this is just nuts. But I'm not in Washington. I'm not reporting on it. But my guess is we won't know until, he has some knee-jerk decision.
The Venezuelans will fight, won't they?
Yeah, of course. No, this would just be a quagmire, an utter debacle. My guess is that he'd bomb them. He'd kind of carry out the Israeli technique. In fact, the Israeli soldiers, for the 2 years of the genocide, really didn't want to fight Hamas. They pretty much stayed in their armored vehicles. That's why the Palestinians called them and they were all wearing diapers. So they call them the diaper army because they, in a safe area, they leave piles of all of their diapers. My guess is that it would be airstrikes, missile strikes, airstrikes. But oh my God, the idea of landing American troops in Venezuela is almost beyond comprehension.
Well, I recall the Cuban airport workers giving them quite a good fight when they invaded Grenada, which is the size of a postage stamp.
Right.
If there's 1 million Chavistas under arms in Venezuela, that is quite a fight. I did say finally, but if I may squeeze just one further point in. I was making the point earlier about in relation to Nigeria. This Boko Haram in Nigeria are exactly the ISIS Al-Qaeda types that were welcomed to the White House in the form of the new self-appointed president of Syria just a couple of weeks ago. Does anybody in the New York Times or other liberal bastions deign to point that out?
No, not that I've seen. The contradictions, look, the Syrian conflict, we provided $500 million worth of arms for the quote-unquote moderate jihadists, which resurrected ISIS. And then we started bombing them. We effectively acted as Assad's air force. This is all predates Trump, but this is just one, and this is the characteristic of late empire. It's just one military fiasco, one debacle after another. There's no way other than describing it like this for the last 20 years, and you can go all the way back to the Vietnam War. So late empires carry out disastrous forms of military adventurism that accelerate their decline. And should we go to war with Venezuela or Nigeria, will just perpetuate that decline.
He'll still call himself the peace president, though.
Oh, well, yeah. Reality doesn't impinge on his vision of himself.
I've never seen anything like this, and I've seen a lot, as have you. Right. We are living. I get what the people are saying in the U.S. No kings, because he is actually behaving like a king, isn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't even seek the rubber stamp of the Congress.
He reminds me of Trujillo in the Dominican Republic, which I covered. This crazy banana dictator, or maybe Papa Doc or something. He's kind of out of that mode.
I think you've got that. Papa Doc Duvalier, Donald Trump.